This podcast is sponsored by Relevant, a location-based mobile network personalized by your interests. Customize your newsfeed to consolidate all the information you care about all in one place to quickly and easily find what's relevant to you. Find out what's going on in your local area and reach your community from the palm of your hand. Relevant is available on iOS and coming soon to Android. Be the first to know with Relevant.
What's up, everybody? It's the Poorly Edited Podcast. I'm Chandler Davis. We're here in Josh's studio. We got the usual suspects here.
My name is Coffee Guy.
My name is Patrick Lilly.
We have...
The lovely.
I don't have a cool nickname.
Yeah, it's Patrick
hi,
Lilly.
My name is...
Yeah, Patrick Lilly's a very cool.
An idiot, dude. Hi, my name is Colt Barron. I'm an artist, designer, all-around humanist, beautiful person.
It's lovely to finally have you here. I know.
Yeah,
like,
I'm so happy.
I've heard about you for months now.
Yeah, it feels like I've known you all my life.
Because we wanted to have you on the show a while back, and then like scheduling didn't work out. But since we're here
Currently
and we're
displaced.
a little more malleable with our schedule, we managed to get you on finally.
We're basically refugees right now.
Yeah, I stopped working with like snot-nosed children, and now I can finally show up here.
Wow, nice.
That's a pretty even trade-off.
That's true.
So,
were you like a teacher? What were you doing?
Okay, so I was working at a daycare because.
That sounds awful.
See, this is the fun part. So I'm an artist. Kids, we'll get back to that in a little bit.
Right.
But I was studying to be a designer in college, a designer and an art education.
Where were you going?
Person. I'm at Kutztown.
Okay.
So I was studying for art education, and then because, well, basically, I'm doing two of the hardest programs at Kutztown right now, and since I wanted to fill out design and just find my niche in that, I decided to get rid of art education because having them both as a double major is like crazy. But so for the last 3 years I was a waiter, and I worked at like a local restaurant, and out of nowhere they just decided not to tell me that they fired me.
Cool.
So
That's
a power move.
Yeah,
to fire someone and not tell them about it.
yeah.
Isn't that like the most fun part about firing somebody though? Is you get to tell them? No, right.
Yeah, you see their face.
I mean, honestly, I would have loved that dramatic moment where I had to just like.
Because you can trash the place on the way out.
Just I had a bad day playing in the
that.
background, and I'm just taking my box of like all of my things.
Except you don't keep anything there as a waiter. So
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
stealing silverware. So you can't leave with that. You're just walking out.
So yeah, and then in my haste, I like applied to so many different positions, and then an old family friend had a daycare that was local. I live in Emmaus, and they had a daycare.
Me too, sort of.
Oh, you okay?
I live right off
kind of
Emmaus
relate
Avenue.
to you in that
My
way.
address is...
But yeah, so there was a local daycare there, and a family friend knew someone, and I got a job there. So then I was working there for the last 2 months, 2.5 months or so, and that I work 40 hours a week every day. So yeah, that has been what has taken up most of my time, and my last day was last Friday.
Good
so
for you.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Being set free.
Yeah.
You know.
But see, I love working with kids, and I love working with people. So I think that it was, if God had a plan, if Drake was right, if Drake was right, it's so funny that I ceased one of my passions in education, and then it just flew into my lap that I would work with younger kids, and I ended up really loving it.
Good. Do you want to do that sort of thing in like a different way again, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I always said that I think like education is just like a natural human trait. Like we all want to, after we're old and gray, we just all want to pass on our knowledge, and it's like kind of with like wanting to have kids or whatever, and I think that that's just my way. I don't know if I will ever have kids, who knows, but I think that education is definitely a passion of mine, and it will be. I think more realistically, I would like for it to be a college professor situation, because even though I like working with little kids, I feel as though a lot of that I have to offer is for more mature audience, because a lot of the stuff I say, I'm very intrapersonal, so I think about things a lot, and I really try and focus on the internal dialogue. You'll find I'll probably spill so much of it today, but I'm like really big into philosophy, and I kind of make up my own little doctrines, and one of them is the whole concept of an internal dialogue. There's a dialogue with yourself, the self that you have on the outside and the one that you have on the inside. So for me, I play a lot with that, and showing other people how and what that means and how to work with it is something that is so invaluable, and especially as an artist, which once we get into that a little bit more, you'll find that everything I believe is art. So like literally like all of this is art, talking, and like everything about, I believe, the human experience is an art form. So being able to identify what's going on internally and being able to some degree, be in control of it and curate it in a way that really suits you, in a way that you're happy, that is one of the best things ever. And I've really gotten to start living because of that, and I started that very early on. I was like in high school where I started to understand the concept of like what self-love was. I know that it's such a trend that self-care is a thing. I love that trend. It's such a fad, but like I think really once you start, like turning into just a Facebook post now, but really when you start understanding what your dialogue is, and like take a second for that, understanding what your dialogue is with yourself, and then you turn it into an interpersonal communication and bring that dialogue externally, I really think that you can make a lot of great stuff happen.
No, I agree, and like I'm glad you were able to start doing that at a younger age. I had no concept of who I was until a couple years after high school.
I still don't.
Perfect.
Good. Yeah.
You'll get there.
Good.
You'll get there.
That's the beauty of the journey, right?
Yeah.
Like it's no fun because like to some degree, if you think about like what fun or comedy or anything is, it comes down to what shakes things up. What it's like, all comedy is irony, I think, is the thing. And if everything is just kind of like expected, it's not funny. There's nothing funny about someone who's beautiful, is confident, and does well for themselves. There's nothing funny about that. It's like if you look at every plot, there's some kind of internal conflict, and that's what makes things happen. That's what makes it, because everyone, that's also relatable, and people can find themselves in doing that, even though if they're not doing it very well, and we can all relate to that.
I just saw a Robin Williams quote like yesterday that was like, I think why depressed people try to make other people laugh so much is that they know what it's like to be so down. They don't want people to go through that. So yeah, that's like...
I'm starting off strong, guys. Come on.
I'll fault me for more for that than you.
Yeah.
Perfect. I think wasn't yesterday like the 4th anniversary of his death or something like that?
Yeah. Facebook really doesn't let you forget that kind of stuff. It's just like, oh, did you just get over it? Well, hello. Look at all these renewed videos.
Oh, I didn't know all 400 of my friends were the biggest Robin Williams fans in the world.
That way for the rest of their life.
Or like the Facebook memories where it's like, do you remember your ex? Here they are again.
Yeah, fully.
Like,
that person that ghosted you, and like you got a matching tattoo of them. You know, like you remember when that happened?
Remember that painting of Robin Williams you did 4 years ago?
Did you make a painting of Robin Williams for you?
Did you? That doesn't stop a lot of people.
It doesn't.
I've had enough of an internal dialogue to realize that I'm not artistic.
Your internal dialogue is that.
No, see, like he just said earlier, that's not true. You are artistic, just not in what would be considered a traditional sense. Because like what you're doing right now is artistic. You know, like this is art, and you know, just because you can't paint. That's why, like, I call so many things art, and I feel like people, you know, like saying art, people usually jump to like drawings and paintings and stuff like that, but it's or like a macaroni art or something.
That's how I'm good at that one.
let me just say and this is like my running definition, because like obviously I'm still like growing, and it's a whole life journey of figuring out what it actually means. But my running definition of what art is something that communicates. That could be literally anything.
Okay.
Any kind of communication. And it rubs off your life energy, so to speak. So one of my things that when I first started thinking about what this was, do any of you guys know Jackson Pollock?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, if you guys know who Jackson Pollock is, look it up. You're on your computer or phone right now.
That's a splatter art dude, right?
Jackson Pollock was I don't know the years, so I'm not even going to try. But he was an abstract expressionist painter. And you've probably even seen his painting, you just don't know his name. Yeah. But he was the drip or action painter who basically took...
What was his name?
Jackson Pollock. Oh, perfect. He basically just slapped and dripped just paint.
There's a joke about him in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh,
where
it's probably gross.
It is, yeah. Star-Lord's in his cabin. He's like, if you had a black light, this looked like a Jackson Pollock painting.
Perfect. So if you out there, if you're looking at a Jackson Pollock painting right now, you'll see that basically it's just a bunch of splatters. It's a bunch of to the untrained eye, it could even look like a mess. Mm-hmm. But how I saw that was it was like a human Richter scale. After doing lots of research and after like diving into my own artistic abilities, I thought about it and I was like, after watching interviews especially, there was one interview and the guy said, well, yeah, sure. The main number one complaint about what Jackson Pollock does is that anyone could do it, right? Because it's very easy, like literally, in the most literally, like basic
easy
ways, it is technically easy to do what he does. However, pressing a key on a piano is very easy, and just combining them in such a way is also easy because you just have to do it, you know. But it's how the master does it. It's how the master puts all of these things together into one condensed piece of, if you want to call it, artwork, and what that means. So then my interpretation from that was like his life energy came off in that painting because it is literally his gesture. His movements are making these paintings what they are. So then when I start thinking about that, it's like, well, isn't that literally everyone? Because if you want to think about representational art, so for my non-artists there, representational is you're trying to represent something. So like realist painters, realist photos, like it could be like hyper realistic, photorealistic artwork. People that do that will never make it exactly perfect because the idea of perfect doesn't exist. And especially with flawed human beings, we cannot make it exist. So with that in mind, you are leaving your life essence in no matter what you do, because no one person can do it exactly in the same way that you can. Even if like I move that, if you tried to replicate that movement, you wouldn't. Even if you spent the rest of your life.
He's right. He's right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, and why did I choose to do this right in front of me? Why didn't I choose your phone? And like all of that, it contributes to a higher communication of what's going on here. Maybe it's just I like the color pink, which is not false. I like the color.
I also like it. What's not
which
to like?
I'm kind of pissed that I'm not next to this microphone, but you know, whatever.
I didn't do the background check, man. I was very busy last night.
So then you just start thinking about it on a larger scale. So if you think about like realist painters or whatever, they have little deviations from what their reference photo was. And like, why is that? Why did they make this shape a little bit more round when it's more angular? And it shows like their values, it shows their effort level, it shows what their aesthetic is. And that transgresses all the way over to like the abstract artist, which I would say as of right now I'm an abstract artist, because what I really love doing, and I'll plug my Instagram right now, it's Colt.Barron, so like super easy, it's just my name, but there's a recent series that I started and it's all like representational figure drawings, figure paintings using watercolor ink and ink transfer. And basically, once you see one of the pieces, I have like all of the process. I really love studying the figure, whatever it is. I recently have been working a lot with hands, but I really love studying the figure.
I hear that I've had some artist friends in the past, and they hate hands because hands are really annoying to draw, I guess.
I'm also very rebellious, so people are like, hands are so hard. I'm like, fuck this. Let me just do this really well. Oh, okay, we pulled it up. So
I like that one.
Oh, thank you. That's my logo.
That's your logo, yeah.
You guys probably saw the logo in the thumbnail, so that's what I used to look like before I got my brown hair. So yeah, you can go to that one right there. One step over.
That's really cool.
No. Well, I guess that works too, but
God damn it,
there's like...
God damn it,
Josh.
Oh my God.
That one.
So there are many... No, that one. And then if you hover over the left side of the right side of the image, there's an arrow, right? Keep going. One more. No, on the left side of the arrow.
Oh, left.
No.
What?
Right.
Jeez.
Sorry.
There's just two.
Anyways, basically, if you go on my Instagram, they have processes, and I really love with graphite, so the initial drawing, I really love exploring and basically getting it right, but then just slapping paint on top of it and destroying what I created, because ultimately, you can see that there are realistic images under that, but I care more about the context at which they're being presented in. So, for me, that's my dialogue. It's like, I can do this, but I don't want to. This is like what and that it really is illuminating of who I am right now. It's like, I am very confident that with enough time, with enough study, I could be a good renderer of artwork, but I really care more about this introspective thought process that I'm going through, and you can really see in that, because what you can't see unless you go on your phone or your laptop or whatever, there's like words in there too.
Yeah.
And they're like swarming around my figures and doing so in such a way that it's almost like your thought process. And I did that specific piece, all of these pieces, in a very angsty, emotional time. And I tend to, at least for right now, when I said that I'm an abstractionist right now, is I'm constantly going in waves, because right now I like just tearing everything up and making it almost kind of like a muddy mess. But I'm doing that because that's like the stage that I'm in. It's almost like Picasso's blue or rose period. It doesn't define me. It is just a part of my life. It's almost like a journal entry. So this is like what I'm doing.
So maybe like your art wouldn't really be true then if you weren't reflecting yourself in it. That's like.
But see, this is the thing. Everyone does it, whether they're conscious of it or not.
Yeah.
Why are you creating? That's a big question. Why are you doing this and not creating a podcast? Why don't you paint? You know, and it's like, well, that's not.
Why don't
that's
you
not
paint,
what.
I have. I have, but it's like when I paint, it doesn't have the same. I don't feel like I can get that expression and that fulfillment out, you know, in painting. But I do something like this or other stuff. And I feel like
this is more meaningful than painting.
I feel like that better represents, or I can better, you know, like film has always been the best way for me to, you know, express that in my artistic way, you know. And that's what I think is so interesting. And partially, like, it's such a weird antithesis for, like, this show. Like, a lot of the stuff you're talking about, because it's like, when we made this show, it was like, we love art, you know, in whatever sense, whether it is music or it is film or this and that, it is all art. And so talking to people who are artists, and they might not even think of themselves as artists. Like, we've talked to photographers and stuff like that. And I don't know if all these people would consider them artists, you know, or consider what they do art at the forefront, you know, but they are, and that was always something that we wanted to show, like that variety too, of being like, no, the show's about art, and all these people are artists, you know, in some way, shape, or form, you know, what they're doing is art, and I just think it's such a interesting thing to if you get down and talk about what art really is, and you start to pick that apart, and you realize kind of like what you're saying, what makes it the way it is, and what makes artists who they are. You know, we can interview 45 different musicians, 45 different photographers and graphic designers, but they're all gonna, even if they're doing similar things, they're all gonna be different and have their own style and have their own motivations and everything like that. Like, we're never going to interview the same type of person twice. You know what I mean? Like, no matter what. And just, it all comes down to that. Like, why are they doing it? What of themselves are they trying to impart into
what's
their
your
work?
dialogue?
Yeah, and what's that And that was a really interesting thing that you said about that communication. That art is a communication of something. And whether it's conscious or subconscious, like, that's what you're doing, you know? Because you have an idea and you have something that you want to portray and put out into the world, and that's what you're doing. And I always say, you know, there's a lot of, like, bands I don't like very much, or maybe there's a picture I don't like very much, but I always respect all of it as art, because that's what it all is. Just because you don't think something's good, like, if you don't think Jackson Pollock is good, that doesn't make him not an artist. You know what I mean? Because he's still doing everything an artist does, you know. and making art. And just because you don't understand it or you don't like it, it's not your thing, doesn't make it not art. You know?
Exactly.
It's always with stuff like that. That's always interesting for me to look at the border of how far that goes. Because if you don't like, you can't argue Jackson Pollock's not an artist, but then.
Well, you can. I mean, you can argue until you're blue.
Absolutely.
You know. It's I mean, he fits.
And I
the
love
bill.
when people try because they don't.
But then we're like, when we look at some of the Marvel movies, we've been kind of frustrated with, not because they're bad, but because they're just kind of a form that seems to be filled out every time with different characters and different arcs or whatever. But they fit. It pretty much fits the same bill every time.
Yeah.
So like, what point
That's
does
still
that?
art, though.
It's still art, but like, what point does that not
that's
become?
the beautiful
It's
part.
interesting to see, like, because you think about, well, what is that boundary of what's not art? And I haven't found it yet.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I look and I'm like, because someone who's just like,
Trying to find it.
like, I'm gonna have a piece of paper and I'm gonna draw a fucking square on it. It's like, well, that's still art. You know, like you.
It is, and see,
You know
that's
what I mean?
because that's what you have to start thinking about. Because this is where you come to at a certain point. People want to, because it's like we're all rebellious and like innately we're like,
I want to break it.
exactly.
I want to break art.
And they get down to the point where they're like, okay, now what? Like, now what do I ask? And it's like, well, what's their dialogue? Why did they? So, like, for instance, if you wanted to, because I'm a musician too. I'll go into. So like I know that lots of classical music starts finding its way in like heavy metal, for instance. These heavy metal people, we can basically assume that they like this music. So then why do they choose to do it in their instruments and not with the traditional ones? And that's an art form. That is like, there's a reason for that. That's a part of your your introspection and your idiosyncratic way. There's a reason for it. What is that reason? And then there's more interpretation that you can do. And then with like the square on a piece of paper, it's like maybe the person did that because they wanted to be rebellious and like, let me just do this and I'll call it art and I win.
Yeah, right.
So, you know,
exactly.
and that is an artistic voice.
Yeah.
One can have it. Like, so many artists are angsty. Hello. So it's being able to take hold of what you are, everything that you are, and manipulate it into such a way that it, for me, is still authentic, but can also better yourself.
Yeah.
And if that is by making it a career. I don't think I can make a career as a fine artist, but that's why I decided to go with design. And as a designer, I'm still finding my voice, and I'm loving it because I had all of this artistic background to feed into my design. So then there are different ways of interpreting that further, because my boyfriend and he and I once had like a fight. It wasn't actually a fight, but I was on Instagram. I'm like, I hate all of these
Should we
pieces.
get him here for this?
I was right.
But there's a lot of, especially with social media now, it's widespread art. And I think especially in, like, so my first interpretation of it was like makeup tutorials and whatnot. Those are like women that are, and men too, but I think it started with women. Check me if I'm wrong, I'm sorry.
Someone's like,
It's a majority of women.
But it started as women showing, you know, maybe it was they wanted to feel validated, or they wanted to feel vanity, or they wanted to show others how to do it, or, you know, there are so many different interpretations, and then more people start learning about it, and then now you see that there's a style circulating, almost like if you wanted to talk about Cubist painting. It's like that started like somewhere, and then more people caught wind of it, and now there's like a similar Instagram face, if you want to call it that. So then that's like widespread art, and I feel like it's really important because, especially when we have the means to do it, so i.e. social media, and also when we feel as though that's the only thing we can turn to, that's the only way we can find validation in and of ourselves, because no one else can do this. I thought of this myself. I took this photo of a sunset and I thought it was, you know what I mean? So it's like anyone can do it in different ways, but that once you start putting things out there, especially on social media, you are signing the contract for it to be under scrutiny. So what I was talking about before was there are different levels of art. At least in my opinion, there is some art that is, at least for me, more lowbrow. So like, like if you wanted to say, like melting crayons on a canvas with a hairdryer, to me that's like
actually my go-to.
So it's just like, at least for me, like that is not something that excites me. It's nothing original, so therefore I would consider that a little bit to be lowbrow. Sure. However, if I put on my artist criticism hat, I could be like, why did they choose canary yellow over
what does that hat
daffodil?
look like?
The hat?
Yeah.
It looks like
it's just
it looks
this.
like a
baseball cap.
I was thinking Robin Hood.
Robin Hood
Because you went out far.
Wouldn't it be like one of the French? What are they like? The painters?
Berlet?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like if I wanted to put on my art criticism hat, all art, because it is subjective, is also up for scrutiny.
Can I hit you something real quick?
Sure.
So what if I think that everybody uses crayons the same way, where they just draw with them because that's the way they're intended to use. So melting them on a piece of construction paper is more artistic in my opinion. Canvas. Melting them on canvas, not all of us can afford canvases.
Yeah.
Is more artistic because it's breaking the mold more.
Exactly, and so that's the thing. Like you can start like interpreting why people are doing these things, and then there are some artists.
I don't actually believe that, by the way.
Well, no, you bring up a very good point.
I think it's valid. I mean, because you say like you think of it as low-hanging fruit. You know, that you're not saying it is. That's the differentiation.
Exactly. It's just like because I don't, and it's not like I'm not. If you're out there and you make your artwork that way, I think
there's someone who's watching right now and they're like.
The crown.
Dislike. Wait a second. Report. But yeah, so it's not that you're invalid. It's not that you are doing a disservice to the art world. It's just like it's not my taste, and I don't expect everyone to listen to this to be like he is my taste.
Well, because if art is a communication and a dialogue, that means just like in a communication and a dialogue, you're going to have agreements and disagreements on that.
You get it. Like art's almost part of the field where opinions matter the least.
Yeah, because we have
in such a subjective form, it's pretty crazy.
Everybody has really strong opinions, but they don't really matter.
Right. Because there's never going to be a right answer.
At the end of the day, it's like I think it looks cool, and then it's like
ultimately, do we even need a right answer? Though?
Yeah, that's how I feel.
I think that's the coolest thing.
It's in human nature to be like, I need to know,
which is how we've gotten this far.
Right.
And so it's fight that
because we were popped in a world where there was no right answer, and we were looking for stuff this entire time, and we still haven't really. We found some right answers, or what could be conceived as right answers.
So when someone's like, no, there is no right answer. There's no answer. And you're just like, but there has to be.
Or like when
we're still curious.
Or like when cars are made a certain way for 30 years, and they're like, wait a second, this doesn't make any sense. We should have been doing this the entire time.
Right. Yeah.
It's like.
So yeah, it's just like for me, it's like I think everyone is valid simply because they're alive and they're creating, and even if you're the most insecure person ever who feels as though they do nothing, you are still contributing something.
Yeah.
And even if that is what you perceive as nothing, because that nothingness can be. Let me talk to you about working with kids full time. There are kids that will fully give you nothing. You will walk up to them, you'll be like, are you okay? Like, what's up? I can tell you're upset. Nothing. And again, like, it goes without saying, that speaks to something. So when I was talking about with artwork, if it is, like, it's very common now to use the blank canvas with a dot in the middle. It's like an artist had a goal for that, because it's inhuman to say, I didn't have a goal for it. People try.
Yeah.
And even in my art, I start my painting not knowing what it's going to look like. I make space for that spontaneity because I think that it better serves me. And if people are like, I didn't have a goal for it, that's certainly fine. But ultimately, humans cannot react. We cannot react to, it's like kind of like animals versus humans. Humans have enough consciousness that we physically cannot well, there are a few like survival instinct kind of things, but we, for the most part, act. We are able to take what we're looking at, give it a second, and then act based off of that. Whereas animals, they just see something and they have to do whatever. So with humans, it's like you can't just look at a white canvas and say, well, obviously I need to do blank. Some people have much more drive to create something. Some people, like me, where I'm like, if I overthink it, it's just going to be ruined.
Right.
I just need to.
You don't want to put yourself in a situation where you have to force what you're doing. Generally, I mean, with the people, everybody I talk to always says that's not a good thing to do.
That's
weird
because
force yourself to go a specific direction. It just doesn't end up being good.
That's interesting because I was watching an interview with Jack White, and he said that he doesn't think
Is that Jack Black's brother?
Yes. He doesn't know how last
It's actually the anti-Jack Black.
From the other universe.
Yeah.
It's the
For
lead singer.
Underworld.
It's the lead singer of the White Stripes. If you've heard them.
See, I'm so sorry.
No.
I love music. I will listen to any genre. Don't know names.
Yeah.
Don't know songs. Don't know any of
Which
that.
doesn't really matter.
You
'Cause
don't
it's
have
just
to.
music.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
It's just
he says that he'll be like to write
That's
songs.
true.
To write songs, he forced himself into an uncomfortable situation because he thinks that's where art flourishes. Out of discomfort.
Certainly, yeah. I don't see why not. See, and it's also different for different people.
Yeah.
Some people,
which is cool.
Create some like I had a friend in high school. He was a great artist. He was like, it was kind of like more angsty art. Which high school. And now he only does like. So he's a writer and he does landscaping. And he said that he doesn't really draw that much. So for him, that might be what he needed for his artistic process. And that's a beautiful thing. The whole idea of an artistic process. Everyone has a different one. For me, forcing myself to do something doesn't oftentimes work. I really love experimenting. Sketching is like my favorite thing. If I didn't have to speak right now, I would probably just listen to you guys and have like a little sketchbook right here and then come in whenever I was asked to. But sketching for me is just an extension of my thought process. I sometimes, and this is like, this is actually going to be my next tattoo. There's this one thing, I don't know if maybe you can look this up. You guys know what a Venn diagram is?
Yes. I'm very familiar.
Me and Venn go way back.
Yeah.
So Venn diagram, and it's
You didn't want me to look up a Venn diagram. Huh?
no. So look up art, narcissism, and
Oh, I can't spell that. I'm not gonna lie.
NARCISS
I think it's double S.
ISN.
Art, narcissism, Venn diagram, perhaps.
That's right. Maybe. How many S's are there?
But basically, so there are two parts of a Venn diagram. One on one side, one on the other side, and then there's something in the middle.
As you do.
Oh, there we go. So art to me, and after I saw this, it kind of revolutionized my whole world. Art is absolute narcissism and crippling self-doubt culminated.
It was just really funny. Zach's like found the image on Google Images and clicked on it and then led him to somewhere and he clicked on it again and led him somewhere else. He clicked on it again.
It's because Google did that thing where you can't just view the image
Yeah.
anymore because they want you to go to the website.
I'm
for
still
more
adjusting
traffic.
to that.
He went through like
it's
5
awful.
different websites to finally find the source of the image.
It was like one of those Russian nesting dolls.
I mean, the DPI is probably at like 32, but it's okay.
Hey,
That's not a clear image.
Just
for
32
sure.
in general, not.
So
But-
absolute narcissism coupled with crippling self-doubt in the middle
Not
somewhere.
coupled, it's culminating.
Culminating.
Once you have both of them, because I have waves, some people have them at the same time, whatever, but for me, there are moments where I have, like, so recently when I was working at my job, I have this, like, character. It's actually a dog character, which I can talk about my new job on Instagram. But anyways, so I have this dog character that I was like doing explorations on, and I was like trying to form out different expressions on the character and different body shapes and types. And I was so happy to complete it because I'm just like having fun here. And then at the end of the day, I'd be like, I hate it.
Yeah.
And that's like growth. And then like I put it away, and then I probably, if I look at it today, I'm like, wow, I really love these. So being able to have that internal struggle too is really important because basically artists thrive off of emotions.
Yeah.
They thrive off of thinking, and don't we all? Like emotions, thinking, relationship. That's like, it's basically, if you want to think about what art is, it's just telling the stories of humanity. And when I was in like a humanities class in high school, the teacher, there were 4 teachers, and they would ask, which one of the 4 disciplines of music, art, history, and literature are the most
Where'd
important?
you go to high school, by the way?
I went to Emmaus.
Okay, sorry about that.
So, well, I live in Emmaus, but technically...
Pat's like, so nice.
I didn't get into that class.
there were 4 teachers, and they said which one is the most important out of the 4. And everyone was like, music or whatever. And no one said art. But then at the end, the teachers were like, did you guys ever think about art? Because art, there's something called visual culture. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's not like an archaic term. But thinking about what visual culture is, I think think the statistic is that 90% of the information that we get is through our eyes. 90. So 90% of all the information that we get through our eyesight. Art doesn't speak a language. Art doesn't know time. It does, like depending on how long ago it was made. But if you look back at cultures, if you want to even go so far as like the cave paintings, we can
That's
look.
where my mind went right away.
Yeah. If you look back at those, we can see what they valued. And, obviously we very well could be wrong, but if we had cave writing, who's to say if we would ever figure it out? If we had cave music, who's to say we would ever figure it out? There are so many, like my music teacher, he would love this. There are so many different iterations of written music. The music that we know that is written is very new.
Yeah.
It is very new. And it is only now kind of standardized. But like if you want to think about the Gregorian chants, that has a completely different notation. So like thinking about how and history, obviously, we don't know if we can speak their language. History and literature, same thing. But you can get, if music was valuable through art, you can get, if literature was valuable through art, you can tell a story visually, and you can, same thing with history. So all of this, art is so important because it is literally how we, if at the very first glance, we can understand something. So this right here is what I live my life by.
Now, do you think it always has to be this?
I think it's hard to find it not to. I think anyone, either subconsciously or consciously, like, that is the process. Because you always hear people describe it. They're like, oh, I'll be working on something and I love it, and then by the end I hate it, or vice versa, you know? And it's like, that's always that clash of like, you think you're really good, you also think you kind of hate yourself, you don't think you're good enough, and you're finding some balance somewhere in there.
We're still talking about the Venn diagram, by the way.
We
can't jump there.
Well, self-identification and curating who you are is art. So it's like, how you think is an art form. How you speak is an art form. How you do literally anything, to me, is an art form. So therefore, this still applies. But I'm curious, do you have any other interpretation?
It's kind of interesting because I definitely agree with this, at least to a certain extent. Like, when it comes to who I am as an artist, as a writer, it's a very, very love-hate sort of thing going on. I very equally hate writing, and I very equally find a certain satisfaction out of it that I can't really relate anything else to. But I don't, like, as a musician, I don't know that that's always the case for me. It's kind of complicated. I don't really know.
Are you just like in absolute narcissism all the time?
Not really. Definitely not when I'm writing. I used to love writing. That was my first creative outlet when I was very young. And then I fell out of it for a while due to a couple different reasons. And then I took a writing class like 2 semesters ago or whatever, and I was having such a bad time in that class. I was getting good grades, but I was having such a stressful time. And I remember I was writing my last paper for the class, and I was actually curled up in a ball in my computer desk. I was actually curled up in a ball. I'm like, this is fucking terrible. And I'm like, I should start writing again. Which was like the most like
that was
real,
back to back.
Oh, it was like same exact moment in my head. And it was like the most real thought I've ever had.
So honestly, I think when it comes down to it, any kind of artistic outlet, expression, or whatever, you have to think about where the source comes from. It comes from the self. It comes to your own sense of validation. It comes to your own sense of being alive, being a human, or whatever. And if for instance, so I'm a singer. I noticed that singers specifically, if someone doesn't like their voice, they hear, I don't like you. Musicians, I feel as though it should be the same, but at least from my interpretation, it's not the same. If they don't like your playing, you can blame it on the instrument. You can blame it on something.
style.
It's like you're using something else to get there, so it's like not as personal as your voice, which is literally part of you is making that sound.
Yes. So it's like, you don't like me. There's something wrong with me. And then once people start making the transition into seeing their instrument as an extension of who they are, it starts to become more personal. But in the most literal sense, this is your voice that they don't like.
Right.
So they take it especially personal. And it's kind of like with your artwork too, because it's like your hands made this. This is like one of your main tools in your life. So if you don't like it, you don't like me. You don't like what I stand for. You don't like what how my brain thinks. So ultimately, I think it comes down to loving yourself and hating yourself, or feeling invalidated or feeling validated. So at least right now, I haven't given it any more thought. But as of right now, I think it could only be those two.
So are you saying that because I'm sure there's a lot of people who are artists and who do art, and then that happens to them, and someone's like, well, I don't like this, and they feel like, oh no. Is that are you saying that's just a part of it? You know, like that's never going to go away, and you have to learn how to take that and produce art with it and live with that feeling, instead of trying to like overcome it and be like, well, I'm going to work so hard that I'll never have to face that kind of criticism anymore because I'll be the best, you know?
Well, let me put it this way. You don't have to do shit.
Right.
You don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
But there is the concept of being a human. It's like, if you're not receiving the feedback you want, let's evaluate that. If you're not receiving the feedback that you want, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to get over it? Or are you going to maneuver what you're doing, or manipulate what you're doing in a way that makes it liked? Now, both of those could be equally as good or as bad, because my first initial reaction was like Van Gogh. He was so afraid to show any of his artwork that it was never seen until he died. And people love it. Yeah. But there are also going to be people that, Rihanna, she said it the best. People gon' talk whether you doing bad or good. So in my interpretation, I feel as though that if you are going to put yourself in a position where you want to put yourself out there, but refuse to acknowledge that other people may not like it, you have some hard lessons that you need to learn. Yeah. Like, especially as a graphic designer, I'm still getting around to that. If you go back on my Instagram, there are some things on my Instagram that I still have like the attitude of a fine artist. And I will say, I don't like making the distinct...
That's good. That's Pokemon. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
if you
that.
go down further to your right, stop. To your right on the top one. What do you guys see? And I guess if you wanted to cut in a picture of this, what do you guys see?
That sounds alright.
Think,
I don't know if we have the
Just
technology.
made more work.
think to yourself now, I'll tell you.
I thought... Can I say it out loud?
Sure.
Out loud?
Is that
Bring
like
it.
Dante's
When
Inferno?
when I saw the smaller one, I thought it was a dog face, and then when you clicked on it, I saw it wasn't a dog face, but that was the first thing that registered in my mind.
Yeah.
So it still kind of looks like a dog to me.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, I just get like, because I see...
Here, let me give you a hint.
Cerberus.
Let me give you a hint. There's something hidden in there.
Is it an hourglass?
That's what I saw.
Timepiece?
You said-
All right. So what's the name of the book?
Dante's
Dante's
Inferno.
Inferno.
It's
The Divine Comedy.
It's Inferno.
Oh.
The blue shape in the middle, that's an eye. So that's an eye for Inferno. It's a drop cap. That's what we call it in the biz. And it's also calligraphic swooshing. Let me actually talk like I know what I'm talking about. Calligraphic flourishing, basically into a skull shape.
I see that, yeah.
And what is contained on the inside is an eye. So it's like, it's a drop cap, but you guys won't be able to see it. So now, why did I bring that up? Why am I whoring myself out? It's because as a designer, I still have a lot of integrity as an artist, where I'm like, I want my voice to still be heard. Almost no one I've ever talked to said, oh my god, it's a drop cap, there's an eye in the middle. Absolutely no one. But for me, it's like, I find fulfillment in that.
Yeah, no, I can understand that.
So,
And that's enough. Like,
and
that's enough for you. It's like...
But this is, especially since you were talking about other people's opinions, and when you become a designer,
Are you still doing your job at that point?
when you're a designer, you are a servant to the people.
Right.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to, and especially if you take commissions as a fine artist. By the way, I want to say I don't like creating the divide between designer and fine artist. We're all artists.
Yeah.
It's just a different job description. So specifically, sorry, I have a lisp. Specifically with being a designer, you have a goal and you have an obligation to fulfill that goal, whatever it may be. And not everyone's going to agree with how you do it.
Yeah.
And for me, I have enough confidence in myself that if my client, this was made for a project, so it was all my curation.
Right.
But if a client saw that and they're like, what is that? I would, because I signed up for the job, I would have to listen.
Yeah.
But the problem with most people is they see that moment as you don't like me. Whereas if you have enough confidence, you made that. You can have the confidence and say, I did that, I thought about it, I did this, and I am great. You can go into the stage of fixing it with a full heart because you were like, I did what I thought was great. And if it wasn't, I'm not a mind reader. Right. I'm just an artist that they commissioned, they trusted, so on. And I can do this because I did this already. And that is where I find people, especially because this is the thing, like artists, I would say generally people are very insecure because it's like there's just this like pink mask in our face, that pink or dark brown, I don't judge. There's this mask of skin that basically holds you from this relationship with another person, if it's your client, if it's your family, if it's your friends, if it's a significant other. And if you know inside that you can do more than just what you're showing, you're good. So, to answer your question, which was, if I can recall, do you think that people should change to the point where they feel validated in what they do for other people? I think that there's kind of a catch-22.
Yeah.
I find a lot of respect for people, mostly in fine artists, that are like, I don't care what you say. I want to create artwork for myself. I'm going to make an entire series of everything that I love, and I'm going to be successful. Yeah. And I think that's absolutely amazing. And those people, when they get criticized, can be like, right. And that's fine if that's what you want.
If that's how you want to play it.
If that's how you want, like, if someone doesn't like my artwork, I'm like, it was not made for you.
Right.
If I'm getting paid for it, then I have something to work with. And I think there becomes a problem when people don't understand the artistic process, because it is all about failure. And I know this is like so cliched, but if you think about it, humans are very innately flawed creatures because perfection is unattainable. So if perfection is the epitome of lack of flaw, we are not flawless. We have everything to do with flaws. So I find that if you can come to grips and come to terms with your own pace of flaw or your specific brand of flaws, that is who you are. So I'm not about to get into any kind of like political debate, but how I got to that point was when I was in high school, I think probably 12th grade. A teacher of mine, she was the FCS teacher of Family Consumer Science, and she taught all the high schoolers to like teach little kids. And something came out, or she said something, and she was like, did you hear about the genetically modified babies and whatnot? And she like started to cry, and she was like, a child is one of those true gifts in life. And I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? There is some truth to that, because our flaws are our personalities. Yeah. Because being human, there is a certain like long list of subsections that we can say we all have in common. You and I, we both need to drink something. Why did you choose to drink Monster and I chose not to get a drink? So it's just like, why are you doing that? Yeah. That would be your flaw. Like, why aren't you? And I use flaw. I throw the word flaw around very easily because I'm not offended by that.
It's a characteristic. It makes you who you are. I think it's interesting you bring up the CRISPR, modification stuff because that's something I never thought of until you just said that.
Yeah,
though,
that's sort of immediately. I'm like, it'd be nice not to have diseased babies.
Right. Well, yeah,
but it'd be But after
But
a
it's
certain
getting
point,
to the
it's
point
like
where
I don't
very
wanna,
soon you're able to just be like, I want my kid to have blue eyes and be a boy.
Yeah,
And
it's like
okay, well.
have you seen
And
Jurassic
then
Park?
gender starts.
Yeah, nice.
Thank you.
So it's like, yeah, the flaws are what make you who you are. So when you start always trying to pursue, I guess it's in our nature to
What
always try to
happens-
pursue flawless.
What happens to people at that point?
Right.
Like,
Yeah, it's
what-
kind of
what
scary.
of
Like up
effect
until
does
this
it
point, flawless has always been unattainable. What if flawless is attainable? Then
No,
what?
it's not.
Because there's
I mean,
no
I-
right answer to that. 'Cause
Exactly.
That's also
I don't
subjective.
think. I mean, yeah, but like.
Let me,
Aside from just being like healthy,
Yeah.
like not having. Like,
let
a
me destroy
disease.
you once more.
I'm a,
This is another one of my doctrines. Anything created by something as... Okay, so
Yeah.
Let me try that
Yeah,
again.
I feel what you're gonna say. Yeah.
humans are flawed creatures.
Yeah.
And anything created by us is just as flawed as we
Just
are.
as flawed.
So
Because how are we gonna?
exactly.
Yeah.
The only way something can reach a point of any standard is if you associate a standard with it. So it's kind of like with academic art, for instance. The whole reason that we could even criticize art at all is by associating an academic standard to it. So like line value, color, contrast, texture, shape, form. Yes!
Nice.
Okay. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Sorry.
You're good. Believe me, you're good.
We associate all those terms, and then don't even get me started on the design one. I don't know. But we have to have a standard, because if we didn't, we could just blame it all on style.
Yeah.
And the same thing with humans. You could act however way you want, but we need laws for a certain level of decency. You know what I mean? So it's like, we could blame a personality on style, or that's just who they are, but that doesn't mean that you're not a dickhead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know
Or
what I
just
mean?
murdering people.
That's just
and
who
you're
he
like,
is.
oh, it's just.
That's just who he is.
I had a teacher last semester who put laws really well, where he said they're just a reflection of that, like, nation's values.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Which I think describes it really well.
Yeah.
It's not like what we think is.
That's
it's
not
like,
what is the right thing.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
the time.
And that's why,
you
like,
know?
not all countries have the same laws.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think just to clinch it up, it's just like, for me, you need to, and this is another one, sing for your audience. And I learned that in choir when I was in high school, because
That makes sense.
because it's like, if you have this beautiful Kyrie from the Reichelderfer Mass in C,
Right.
or E.
Yeah, I know what that's like.
That's one of my favorites.
It's a great song.
Yeah.
I've sung it.
Oh yeah, the song.
Tenor one.
Right. Yeah.
Hello.
You're nice.
So and she was there was and there were other songs too, but she would say, like, there's this one beautiful, like, stop in this piece where it's just utter silence, but every time in a fucking high school, everyone knows there's silence, let's clap, and
Yeah.
it ruins
Oh, yeah.
and it ruins the song. I don't know if that's in PDA, I don't know, so don't
Extra term.
I just love that song.
Shut the fuck.
But there were times where she was like, all right, guys, I'm sorry, we're just not going to do the pause, let's just keep going through, because it's
but
like,
that's what makes it.
sing
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
your audience, even if you are taking some things away. So it's like, you guys, if you don't know, it's not like so if you
Feel free to say anything. You want. We won't take it personally.
We're not on
like
We're
it-
very flawed.
no I was going to say, this wouldn't be the why gays are bad podcast if you were having me on, unless you wanted a really
Absolutely.
interesting
We like to have a rounded opinion here on the Why Gays Are Bad podcast.
Please play devil's advocate.
yeah, like, sing for your audience. That is a very extreme case, but it's,
That's a very niche audience.
yeah.
Podcast.
You know what? We're in central Pennsylvania or east Pennsylvania, anywhere in Pennsylvania.
That's true.
So, but you get what I'm saying. It's like, sing for your audience. You need to know what you're doing, and people, like, there are people in my design degree, that don't know what the they are doing.
Yeah.
Sorry, anyone who's listening. I'm not talking about you.
That's also to
everyone
say
else, yeah.
they might just be at a different stage. too,
Exactly.
and they're gonna get there.
And this is the thing. Like, I can judge people, but no matter what, my telling you that you are valid is not my job.
Right.
You should already know. Because in my opinion, I don't care how shitty of an artist you are, I don't care how terrible of a person you are, and what wrongs you have ever done me, I still find value in validation in everyone. And I feel like people feel as though that when you're criticizing them, or they are being criticized, that their value is gone, like what we talked about before, because you don't like my art, you don't like me. But ultimately, my opinion only matters to me. So if someone doesn't agree with how I do things, or I refuse to lose sleep because I value myself more than I value someone else's opinion of me. So if someone in my art degree hears this and they're like, hey, what the fuck, like, you're being a dickhead, and it's like, you know what, you very well could think that, and that's fine. But I am also the first person to lend a hand. I'm the first person to give my opinion and help you. I will show you how to use Illustrator like no one has ever seen before. So it's like, I know the type of person that I am. I can be kind of mouthy. I can say that, I can be very quick to judge something, but that does not mean that I haven't thought about it more. Because in many ways, I'm saying this to be humorous. We're on the Poorly Edited podcast. Like, I'm not just going to talk about how everyone at Kutztown is the best designer that I ever met.
I thought we rebranded.
Yeah.
Well, not really.
So it's like, when I say that there are people in my degree that don't know what they're doing, I'm like, there are some people, when I criticize them, they get out of whack.
Yeah.
And there are some people...
You're in the wrong field for that.
And I wouldn't say that it's the
Holy crap.
wrong field, because there's so much power in loving what you do and doing it endlessly. There's this one girl, and I don't know if I should talk about this, but there's this one girl who... And I talked to her about this, so there's no reason for her to be upset. And I don't know if she would even know if I'm talking about her. But she does, like, the same style... Josh just turns up.
Starts packing
Pulls
up.
out a gun.
She does like the same style of illustration and design work for almost everything she does. And there's a lot of power in that. I, however, I love, if you even take a gander at my gallery, I am all about variety. I love being able to do a wide, you can click, so those things, they're like mini galleries, so you can click through them. And there's a process.
Do you remember how to do that, Zach?
It's sad.
So, like, I have a style, of course, because the idea of a style is just your human Richter scale. Because no one else can do what you do. But there's this one girl that just does one style, and that's just what she does. And even though that's not one of my values, I can look at what she does and be like, it's like a mini little masterpiece, because you've been practicing the same thing over and over again. And you will get work for that. And that's just not what I want to do with my dialogue. And that's perfectly fine. Because this is the thing, like, I am not in the business of trying to validate others, but I will do it.
Yeah. I think that's one of the hardest things. That's one of the biggest hurdles, I would say, when you work in a field like that. Maybe not just an arts field, but it's applicable to a lot of other things, where you get over that thing of, well, criticism isn't criticism of you as a person; it's a criticism just of your work. And if you can get past that differentiation to a certain extent, you're going to be able to take that criticism much further by learning from it, instead of just being offended and getting upset and having it ruin the rest of your day, and being able to more analytically, objectively look at it and go, I would rather someone break down my work and tell me why it's horrible than tell me why they love it so much and it's just amazing and perfect, because I'm going to learn a lot more from that person that said they hate it.
But see, I think that there's an important distinction that people don't think about. Even if someone were to attack who you are as a person, why do you care?
Right.
Why do you care? Like, because ultimately, how I see it, like, if my boyfriend's trying to tell me something that is constructive, like, I want to listen to that rather than... Because this is something that I think is still very true. If there are some hateful, mean comments saying anything about me, I can't wait to read them. Bring them on.
If there's enough of them, we can have you back and just do an hour of reading through
Oh my
them.
god.
I'm down.
Colt Barron reads mean comments.
I love hateful comments so much. They're so much fun.
I'm really disappointed we haven't gotten many.
Yeah, like, come on, guys.
If you have a hateful comment, please comment below. So I know Josh is always on every video being nice, but I want someone to be mean so we can actually like change.
I'll leave your first one.
Okay, there we go.
I'll go on my YouTube channel and I'll leave your own
trash.
So this guy sucks.
That Colt person's terrible.
We make burner accounts that we ourselves just write shitty things on our own videos.
Oh yeah. But like, even if someone were to attack you as a person, it's like it is your job as that person being attacked to be a smart consumer.
Yeah.
See what they are singing to their audience, if you wanted to call it that, and be like, does it matter to me? Does this person care enough? Like, I say this to people all the time, like, do you care enough about this person? And conversely, does this person care enough about you that you should even be listening? Because
that it's constructive.
because in any way, like I've gotten some really great criticism from people that just didn't know me or didn't care, and that's great. But you need to look at where this is coming from, because most people don't think about like, but it's not nice for people to do that.
Yeah.
But hello, they're allowed to do that. It's like, of course, I'm not arguing the fact that people should or should not be rude and mean. Like, of course you shouldn't, but they're allowed to do that, and far be it from me to take that liberty away from them.
Freedom of speech, dude.
You know, if you wanted to, and like, also, I am the chairperson of a. See, I'm telling you, I'm like,
Every 10 minutes, you're like, oh, by the way, I'm this.
Also, I'm the emperor.
oh, yeah.
And
I am the chairperson of an organization, a committee on Kutztown, and it's called Replace the Hate. So I'm sure you guys have heard on any kind of news outlet that sometimes white supremacists will just post up posters of trying to gather members or whatever, like trying to get a march that recently just got allowed.
It was like 9 people. There was one in DC. I said it had like literally 12 people in it. I think
it's good to see that they're. You know, I'm glad there's only 12.
Yeah,
There was like,
You know, like-
there was like
but-
4,000 protesters, like 12 people marching. It was
But the important thing is, being the chairperson got me, and we had like, so it's really cool. We had an information night. So basically, the first initial. Sorry, he's like dancing behind the camera. Let me like.
This would look. I'm sorry.
Josh can't move. Josh
he
is
literally
watching all the
couldn't.
cameras,
So great.
and Josh
really funny.
blockaded himself into
If
a corner.
we get like a camera to just like
I
a
wish
phone
I wish
camera,
we
could we
could-
like
some-
splice it?
Someone can
Yeah,
take
can
a
we get-
picture of it.
It's really funny too, because Josh keeps looking around at his camera. He's like, I'm so proud of you guys.
Yeah, he literally cannot take any steps.
But so being the chairperson of that, we had like a night dedicated to art creation, because that's what we do.
What phone is this?
We're
Is that from the future?
I'll just
What
take
kind of phone is that?
Mine.
What does that mean?
it's mine.
It's mine.
That's what it means.
It's mine now. You're not
We
getting it
have
back.
smile. I hope you guys can see this right now. That's him.
We're gonna.
All this is on Zach, really.
By the
Yeah,
way,
you're gonna have to
If you,
put
don't,
that
if
in.
you don't see Josh on your screen right now, it's Zach's fault.
Oh, I'm
Zach's
definitely not doing that. Are you kidding me?
all of those lights on me that actually make me look presentable. Yeah. So we.
I haven't seen the footage yet. I think
Oh, how
promise anything,
rude.
dude.
So that we have like art creation nights, because the first iteration of what our committee was whenever like posters like that would be hung up on campuses or wherever, we wanted to create posters so that we could put them on top of them, so basically to replace the hate.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
However, this information night, it was kind of like our first night where we had someone from the sociology, or no, it was the anthropology department. She was a specialist on hate specifically, and then we had people from the police department and the lawyer of our university come, and basically what our initial plan was to cover up these posters is illegal. We cannot do that.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not about trying to censor these people, because I'm an artist. I hate censorship. It's not that we should censor these people. It's that we collectively need to become better consumers. Just because there is something out there, that does not mean that we need to listen to it.
Right.
You out there, all of my like philosophies, take them and grow with them, because it took me 21 years to get to where I am.
Or decide that they suck and form your own. That's like as constructive.
Well, I take that as growing, like taking what I have and like throwing it out the window or using it, like, because it took me 21 years to get where I am, and that's like my teacher coming out, and it's kind of like to put yourself in any kind of position, like right now, to say that you guys are on your own show or you put yourself on your own show is like, it's egotistical. It certainly is, because you're like, you are basically saying, by creating the show, I have something to say, which to the right person could seem like a real narcissist.
We still haven't said it, whatever it is.
We keep bringing on more people.
Yeah.
41 hours later, we're still trying to figure out what we were trying to say the first time.
So it's like, as a teacher, you need, and just as a general human, I think like the idea of ego is so important, because it's that internal dialogue. If you want to think about Freud, the ego versus the id. Now, I'm kind of like making my own Coltian version of it, but that's my dialogue, and I love doing that in such a way that it is enriching my life more. So I forgot what we were talking about. Basically, people, even if you are being attacked, you still should be able to find validity in yourself, because you just are alive, that you're creating, that you're doing something. And even if you aren't, you're in the process of it, you know? So to me, it's like, it doesn't even matter if they are attacking you to your face. I think that you still can objectively look at what they're saying, and that's another thing. Like, if people, because I come from a college of basically 20-somethings that don't know how to criticize correctly, but out of every rude, mean comment that people, and I've had a teacher that was a rude, mean person to my artwork, a professor who could not see my dialogue. But even if I were the type to toss her opinion out of the window, I wouldn't have grown as much. Or if I didn't listen to every little thing that she said, I wouldn't have grown. Because there were times where she literally would not talk to me. She'd just be like, I don't know, I don't know. And I had to basically be like, okay, I'll go find someone else. And then that gave me a different perspective from a different teacher. And like, these are all of these things in your life that you kind of need to allow your body to show you how to love it. So let me say that again. Your body will show you how to love it. Like, there are some things that your instincts lead you to, and listen to them, but you don't have to follow them exactly. Because I'm still kind of miffed that a professor was doing that, but you know, it's whatever. But you can find validity and valid criticism in things that you may not even want to hear, which goes without saying, but it's very hard to really think about it, because when you see something scathing or feel something scathing, it's an immediate response to just like drown it out of your life, or say, I don't deserve that, I don't want to hear that, and to some degree that's the easy way out. And if we want to talk, since you guys are all about music, the easy lessons or the really easy songs to listen to are ones that we'll never hear again. So, and I heard that from a professor. He was actually a communications professor. Cool. And he said it like, pop music today, it's catchy, it's good. You know, the whole thing about pop music is why the chorus repeats 3 times. And this is just my interpretation. He didn't say this. The reason why it repeats each time is that the goal is of the song that everyone sings along by the end of it. Everyone knows what's going on, and it shows that like little mini community that people find. And that's powerful. That's really powerful. However, if you think back to like a Beethoven symphony, people for 200
it's hard
plus
to sing
years.
along to that one.
Yeah, definitely.
I try though. Hit me up, shower. So it's a lot hard. Like for 200 years, people are still interpreting it, and there are infinite numbers of interpretations. So it's kind of like if you want to think about pop music now as low-hanging fruit, and then the real beautiful fine art is Beethoven. That's like how I'm equating it. But there's still validity in the pop music.
Yeah.
There, it has a goal, it has a purpose. But
Also,
it's like,
it seems to achieve its purpose most of the time.
It's still
absolutely,
art,
and like all the ASMR videos and the crayons, people love that shit. If I see,
Absolutely.
like, looking around to see if there's like some crayon canvases.
If you say one bad word about Josh Brennan, I will fuck you up. Okay?
They're out of the wall, just covered in crayons.
But if you think about it, it's like pop music is very fast paced as far as like it being presented, and oftentimes like, tell me the last Rihanna song. I don't know.
I don't
Was
know
it
any
like
Rihanna songs,
Work?
honestly.
Was it Work?
Was it?
Probably.
You know what I mean? So
Amrest,
it's
what
like-
was the last Rihanna song that was released?
Wild Thought.
Wild Thoughts.
She was in it.
Yeah, let me just ask, what song is that? What is that? So again, it's like if you think about things that are produced easily are easily forgotten.
Although there's some bias here. Do any of us even listen to Rihanna?
They do.
Yeah.
I don't like
Oh,
that.
you did. Well, you quoted her earlier.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Why did Rihanna come up again? I didn't even. Okay, it's almost like I planned out the speech and I didn't.
We're at an hour 10,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Okay.
I think we could easily do another hour, but
But
Let's do it.
we're literally running out of space.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah. We're gonna have to.
someone's gonna.
Oh,
have
it just
to
got
die.
so
We're gonna
sad.
Someone's gonna have to die.
I'm sad this conversation has to end.
Oh,
I mean, it doesn't actually.
this-
We're on
We'll
air.
do a Rihanna again. Does anyone have Russian roulette?
No.
I wish. That's a really good segment for
All right,
the
we're
show.
gonna have to censor you and the podcast.
Okay, perfect.
Dude, it has been absolutely
Oh, yeah.
awesome. This episode has been.
It's
really,
been
really
an
great.
for coming on.
introspective, very artistic.
I love it when people have like formed thoughts on things and like have something they can stick to.
Our batteries are
Doctrine.
dying.
Our batteries are dying.
Our batteries are dying.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna
Please-
keep quiet.
Please, where can people find your art?
Okay.
Where can
So
they find your home?
I'm just going. My PO box is. I would say as of right now, contacting me for any kind of artwork, you can get me on Instagram at colt.barron. That's COLT.BARRON. I hope I have some kind of graphic in the video, but if not, that's fine. Or a link in the description, perhaps.
Yeah.
Zach can do that.
And also, my email, which is where I do most of my business correspondence, would be, boom, colt.barron@yahoo. Same.
so easy.
It's so easy. I might as well do it. So yeah, I'm pretty easy to get hold of. Oh, I never got to talk about my new job, but
Hell yeah.
if you want to check out some of my works in progress and maybe some cute dog drawings on my Instagram, please do at colt.barron at Instagram. Am I right, ladies?
Slide into those DMs.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
All right. Any parting words before we wrap up?
Thank
to
you
the
so
world.
much for coming on.
Yeah, I can't wait to come back, hopefully.
Sure.
Forever.
Yeah. I'll just become a permanent member.
That's fine.
All right.
I'll be a lamp.
We have a lot
If
of
I need
people
to.
demand a position like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
fine
fine.
with it. We'll have a lot more to talk about that with.
Hell yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
It's-
Oh,
It's
thank
been
you.
amazing.
For
Thank
sure.
you guys so
coming on.
much.
Thanks
It's
so
been
much.
great.
I'm so glad we could get you on.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everybody.